Get your ghetto kid away from the decent families. Officer Bradley Thompson shoved Keisha Williams back from the swing set, his hand rough against her shoulder. Keisha stumbled but stayed upright. Thompson stepped into her face, towering over her. You heard me. Pack up and get out. His finger stabbed toward the parking lot like he was shooing away trash. Maya's swing stopped dead. Every parent in the playground turned to stare. Conversations died. A white mother pulled her daughter behind her, whispering urgently, Officer, what law am I breaking? Keisha kept her voice steady despite the humiliation burning in her chest. Thompson's hand slammed onto his radio. Dispatch, suspicious individuals harassing families at Riverside Park. Need immediate backup. He leaned closer to Keisha's face. You people always think you're entitled to everything. Maya slid off the swing, tears forming. Mommy, why is he being mean? Thompson smirked at the child's distress. Inside Keisha's purse, something metallic glinted through the zipper, completely unnoticed by the officer drunk on his own authority. Have you ever been humiliated by someone who had no idea who they were about to face? Riverside Community Park had been peaceful just 30 minutes earlier. Families scattered across manicured lawns, children's laughter echoing from the state-of-the-art playground equipment. This wasn't just any neighborhood park. Property values here started at $2 million, and the monthly homeowner fees could cover most people's rent. Keisha had arrived with Maya at 2:30 p.m., same as they did every Saturday. She'd moved to the area 6 months ago for work, a job she described simply as government consulting when other parents asked. The house she rented was modest by neighborhood standards, but the schools were excellent, and Maya deserved the best. Higher, Mommy! Push me higher! Maya had squealed from the swing, her braids flying as she pumped her legs. Keisha obliged, checking her phone briefly. 3 missed calls from work, but weekends were sacred time with Maya. Whatever crisis was brewing at the office could wait. Other families dotted the playground. The Hendersons with their twin boys, Sarah Lane helping her toddler down the slide. The Martinez family, no relation to Officer Martinez, setting up a picnic. Everyone knew each other from school pickup lines and neighborhood association meetings. Well, everyone except Keisha. She'd tried joining conversations, volunteering for fundraisers, attending the monthly safety meetings. Polite smiles, brief exchanges, but something always felt slightly off. Like she was being evaluated, measured against an invisible standard she couldn't quite identify. The morning had started normally for Keisha. Coffee at 6 a.m., reviewing weekend case files at her kitchen table while Maya slept. The federal building downtown was only 20 minutes away, its imposing glass facade visible from her bedroom window. She'd made those early morning drives for 8 years, badge and service weapon secured in her nightstand drawer. Maya had helped pack their park bag, carefully selecting snacks and her favorite unicorn toy. Can we get ice cream after, Mommy? She'd asked the same question every Saturday. If you're good, Keisha had replied, the same answer every time. 20 minutes into their park visit, Maya had dropped her favorite toy, a small purple unicorn, near the picnic tables. As Keisha bent to retrieve it, she noticed the police patrol car pulling into the parking lot. Routine, she thought. The neighborhood association paid for extra patrols. Officer Bradley Thompson stepped out first. 4 years on the force, according to his file, though Keisha wouldn't learn that detail until much later. His service record showed a troubling pattern. 7 formal complaints in the past 18 months. All from minority residents. All dismissed or downgraded by his supervisor. His partner, Jennifer Martinez, followed reluctantly. She'd been trying to redirect Thompson's attention all morning, suggesting they focus on actual crime instead of what he called quality of life enforcement. Martinez had joined the force to help her community, not harass innocent families. Thompson's eyes had swept the park with practiced assessment. Families, children, normalcy. Then his gaze landed on Keisha and stopped. Something in his expression shifted, hardened. Martinez noticed it too, recognizing the look that usually preceded trouble. "Brad, we should check on the vandalism report at the tennis courts," she'd suggested, hoping to redirect his focus. Thompson ignored her, already walking toward the playground. His radio crackled with routine chatter, federal call signs mixed with local traffic, the constant background noise of law enforcement. Neither officer paid attention to the federal communications bleeding through their radio frequency. The FBI task force operations, the interagency coordination calls, the high-priority federal responses, all just background static to local patrol officers. Keisha's phone buzzed again. This time the caller ID read FBI Director. She declined the call, focusing on Maya's joy as her daughter navigated the monkey bars. Some things were more important than work, even urgent federal operations requiring immediate coordination with local law enforcement. Thompson approached with the confidence of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. His hand rested casually on his radio, a practiced gesture of authority designed to intimidate. Parents began to notice, conversations slowing as they watched the interaction develop with growing unease. What they witnessed next would be recorded on 12 different cell phones, captured on body cameras, and documented in federal incident reports. But in that moment, as Thompson stepped deliberately into Keisha's personal space, none of them could have predicted the seismic shift about to occur. Thompson's approach was calculated, deliberate. He'd done this dance before. The slow circle, the intimidating stare, the assumption of guilt until proven otherwise. What he hadn't counted on was Keisha's stillness, her refusal to show fear or submit to his psychological pressure. "I asked you a question," Thompson said, stepping closer until he was invading her personal space. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" Keisha's response was measured, professional. "Officer, I'm spending Saturday afternoon with my daughter at a public park." "The same thing every other parent here is doing." The word officer seemed to irritate Thompson. His jaw tightened. "Don't get smart with me. You know exactly what I mean." He gestured broadly at the other families, all of whom happened to be white. "These people live here, pay taxes here, contribute to the community." Maya had climbed down from the monkey bars and was walking toward them, her small face creased with concern. "Mommy, is everything okay?" "Stay right there, sweetheart," Keisha said gently, never taking her eyes off Thompson. Her voice carried the kind of calm authority that comes from years of training, though Thompson was too focused on his own power trip to recognize it. "See? Even the kid knows something's wrong," Thompson said, his voice getting louder. "Kids have instincts about these things." Martinez finally spoke up. "Brad, maybe you should let me handle this, Martinez." Thompson's dismissal of his partner was sharp, final. He turned back to Keisha. "I'm going to need to see some identification. Driver's license, registration if you drive here, proof you have legitimate business in this area." The legal absurdity of the request wasn't lost on Keisha. "Officer Thompson," she said, reading his name tag with deliberate emphasis. "What specific law do you believe I'm violating that gives you probable cause? Cause to demand identification?" Thompson's face flushed red. Nobody talked to him like that, especially not someone he'd already decided was a problem. "Suspicious behavior, loitering, failure to identify when requested by a peace officer." "I haven't been loitering. I've been actively parenting my child at a public playground for less than an hour." Keisha's voice remained steady, but there was steel underneath. "And in this state, failure to identify only applies when there's reasonable suspicion of criminal activity." The gathering crowd of parents was growing larger. Phones appeared, some obviously recording. The Henderson twins had stopped playing to stare. Sarah Lane was openly filming while shielding her toddler behind her legs. Mrs. Patterson from the Neighborhood Watch Committee stood with her mouth agape, clearly recognizing the injustice unfolding. Thompson noticed the phones and his authority complex kicked into overdrive. "Put those phones away! This is official police business." "No, sir," came a voice from the crowd. Tom Henderson, a corporate lawyer who'd moved to the neighborhood for the schools. "Recording police in public is protected speech. You know that." "I don't care what you think you know about the law," Thompson snapped. "This is a police investigation, and if you interfere, you'll be arrested too." The threats were escalating. Parents pulled their children closer, but nobody left. This was their park, their community, and they weren't about to abandon Keisha to Thompson's abuse of power. Thompson's radio crackled. The dispatcher's voice cut through the tension. "All units, be advised. Federal Task Force requesting coordination on Operation Clearwater. Priority Alpha. Priority. Any units in Riverside District respond." Neither Thompson nor Martinez reacted. Local patrol officers rarely interfaced with federal operations, and Thompson was too focused on his confrontation to pay attention to routine radio chatter. The federal call signs meant nothing to him, just background noise in his quest to assert dominance. Keisha heard it, though. Her head tilted slightly, the first crack in her perfectly composed facade. Operation Clearwater was her operation. Her team was waiting for local coordination that wouldn't come because the local officers were too busy harassing the federal agent they were supposed to be supporting. "Are you going to show me my ID or not?" Thompson demanded, his hand moving to his handcuffs. "Because I can do this the easy way or the hard way." "I'll comply with any lawful order," Keisha replied carefully. "But I'm asking you to articulate the specific reasonable suspicion that justifies this detention." "The specific suspicion is that you don't belong here, and you're acting suspicious by questioning my authority." Thompson was getting louder, more aggressive. Maya started crying softly, her small hands pressed against her ears. Martinez stepped forward, her conscience finally overriding her fear of Thompson's temper. "Brad, look, maybe we got a call wrong or—" "We didn't get any call, Martinez. I'm exercising my discretion to investigate suspicious activity." Thompson unclipped his handcuffs, the metallic sound sharp in the afternoon air. "Ma'am, turn around and place your hands on the patrol car." The crowd gasped collectively. Someone shouted, "She didn't do anything." Another voice, "This is harassment." A third parent called out, "I'm calling the police chief." "I am the police," Thompson roared back, his composure finally cracking completely. "And if any of you interfere with this arrest, you'll join her in the back of my patrol car." Keisha looked at her crying daughter, then at the dozen phones recording every moment. Her purse sat on the bench 3 feet away, FBI badge and credentials clearly visible to anyone who bothered to look inside the partially open zipper. The golden shield caught the afternoon sunlight intermittently, but Thompson wasn't looking. He was performing for an audience he wanted to intimidate. "Officer Thompson," Keisha said quietly, her voice carrying a warning that went completely over his head. "I strongly advise you to reconsider this course of action." "Are you threatening a police officer?" Thompson grabbed her arm roughly, his fingers digging into her bicep hard enough to leave marks. "That's it. You're under arrest for threatening a police officer, failure to identify, and resisting arrest." "I haven't resisted anything," Keisha pointed out, her professional training keeping her voice level even as her anger began to simmer beneath the surface. "You're resisting right now by arguing with me." Thompson's logic was circular, absurd, but backed by a badge and a gun. He forced Keisha's arm behind her back, reaching for his handcuffs with his free hand. Maya broke free from where she'd been standing and ran toward her mother. "Don't hurt my mommy!" Thompson roughly pushed the 8-year-old away. "Get back! This is police business." The crowd erupted. "He just pushed a child. Someone called his supervisor. This is insane." Martinez finally found her voice. "Brad, that's enough. You can't push children." But Thompson was beyond reason now, drunk on power and the thrill of absolute authority. He had the handcuffs out, was reaching for Keisha's other wrist, when something fell from her purse as it was jostled by the crowd's movement. The metallic click of handcuffs being opened echoed across the now silent playground. Maya's crying grew louder. The phones kept recording. And somewhere in the federal building 20 minutes away, Operation Clearwater waited for local support that would never come. What Thompson didn't know, what none of them could have predicted, was that he was about to make the biggest mistake of his career, because in about 30 seconds, everything would change. The handcuffs clicked into place around Keisha's left wrist with a sound that seemed to echo across the entire playground. Maya's screams pierced the afternoon air as she watched her mother being restrained like a common criminal. The sight of her child's terror was almost more than Keisha could bear, but her federal training kicked in. Stay calm, document everything, let the system work. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47, Thompson spoke into his radio with obvious satisfaction. "I need a backup unit at Riverside Community Park for transport. One adult female in custody for failure to identify, resisting arrest, and threatening a police officer." The lies rolled off his tongue so easily that Martinez actually took a step back. She'd witnessed the entire interaction, and none of those charges were remotely justified. But challenging Thompson in front of civilians would end her career, and she knew it. "Copy that, Unit 47. Unit 23 is en route. ETA 4 minutes, came the dispatcher's response. Keisha found herself pressed against the hot metal of the patrol car, Thompson's hand heavy on her back. The humiliation was intentional, designed to break her spirit and demonstrate his absolute authority to the watching crowd. What he didn't realize was that every second of this illegal detention was being burned into the memory of a federal agent who specialized in civil rights violations. "Mommy!" Maya tried to run to her mother again, but Martinez gently caught her shoulders. "Honey, stay back," Martinez said softly, the first kindness anyone had shown the terrified child. "Let us handle this." "But he's hurting my mommy!" Maya's voice cracked with confusion and fear. She didn't understand why the man in uniform was being mean, why nobody was helping, why her strong, brave mother was being treated like she'd done something wrong. Tom Henderson pushed through the crowd, his lawyer instincts overriding his natural caution. "Officer, I'm an attorney, and I'm witnessing what appears to be an unlawful arrest. This woman has committed no crime in my observation." Thompson barely glanced at him. "Sir, step back or you'll be charged with interfering with police business." "I'm not interfering. I'm observing, and I'm telling you that you have no legal basis for this arrest." "Are you a criminal defense attorney?" Thompson asked with a sneer. "Corporate law, but I know basic constitutional rights." "Then you know to shut up and let me do my job." Thompson turned his attention back to Keisha, beginning to search her pockets. "Do you have any weapons, drugs, or anything that might stick or poke me?" The question was standard protocol, but coming from Thompson, it felt like another layer of humiliation. "No, officer," Keisha replied quietly. Thompson's hands moved methodically through her pockets, finding only keys, a phone, and a small wallet. He tossed the items onto the hood of the patrol car with unnecessary force. The phone's screen cracked when it hit the metal. "Brad," Martinez said quietly, "maybe we should wait for backup and sort this out properly." "We are sorting it out properly." Thompson's confidence was absolute. "This is exactly how you handle people who think they can disrespect law enforcement." Unit 23 arrived with lights flashing, but no siren, not wanting to create more of a scene than already existed. Officers Kevin Walsh and Diana Torres stepped out, immediately assessing the situation. Both were veterans with over a decade of experience, and something about the scene didn't sit right with either of them. "What have we got, Thompson?" Walsh asked, his eyes taking in the crowd of filming parents, the crying child, and the woman cuffed against the patrol car who didn't look like any criminal he'd ever arrested. "Suspicious individual, failure to cooperate, resisting arrest." Thompson rattled off his charges like he was reading from a script. "Need transport downtown for booking." Torres knelt down to Maya's eye level. "Hey, sweetheart, what's your name?" Maya Williams, the little girl sobbed. That man is hurting my mommy, and she didn't do anything bad. Williams, Torres repeated, glancing at her partner. Something about that name seemed familiar, but she couldn't place it. Walsh approached Keisha, his demeanor noticeably different from Thompson's aggressive stance. Ma'am, I'm Officer Walsh. Can you tell me your version of what happened here? I was playing with my daughter when Officer Thompson approached and demanded identification without stating any specific violation or reasonable suspicion, Keisha said, her voice steady despite her position. When I asked him to articulate his legal basis for the stop, he became increasingly aggressive and ultimately arrested me on charges that appear to be fabricated. The professional language, the precise legal terminology, the complete lack of street vernacular. Walsh had heard federal agents testify enough times to recognize the pattern. This woman talked like a cop. Thompson, did you run her ID? Walsh asked. She refused to provide ID, Thompson lied smoothly. That's why she's under arrest. Walsh looked at the cracked phone and wallet on the hood of the car. Looks like you've got her wallet right there. Thompson's jaw tightened. She didn't provide it voluntarily. Ma'am, what's your full name? Walsh asked Keisha directly. Keisha Marie Williams. Walsh walked to his patrol car and ran the name through the system. What came back made his blood run cold. No criminal history. No warrants. But there was a flag in the system. A federal flag that meant this person was law enforcement. Thompson, Walsh called out, his voice tight. We need to talk. Now. But Thompson was too busy playing to his audience, too drunk on the power rush of having a woman in handcuffs to pay attention to his colleague's growing concern. Meanwhile, Keisha's purse sat on the bench where she'd left it, the zipper still partially open. The afternoon sun struck the metal inside at just the right angle, causing it to gleam like a beacon. A few parents had noticed the reflection and were starting to move closer to get a better look. Torres was still talking to Maya, trying to calm the traumatized child, when her radio crackled again. All units, priority Alpha. Federal task force still requesting immediate coordination on Operation Clearwater. Agent Williams is the primary contact. Torres froze. She looked at Maya, then at the woman cuffed against Thompson's patrol car, then at the growing crowd of concerned citizens with their phones out. Agent Williams. The pieces started falling into place with terrifying clarity. Walsh, Torres called out, her voice urgent. We have a problem. A big problem. But it was too late. The damage was done, the humiliation complete, and the federal agent who specialized in prosecuting civil rights violations had just been illegally arrested by the very type of officer she'd spent her career putting behind bars. The only question now was how much worse Thompson could make it before someone stopped him. Torres was moving toward Walsh when it happened. Thompson, still riding his power high, decided Keisha needed to be searched more thoroughly. He grabbed her purse from the bench, intending to dump its contents dramatically in front of the crowd. One final humiliation to cement his authority. Let's see what you're really hiding, Thompson announced, shaking the purse upside down. Keys scattered, lip balm rolled across the pavement. Maya's emergency inhaler bounced twice. And then, catching the afternoon sunlight like a golden thunderbolt, a federal badge hit the concrete with a metallic clang that seemed to echo forever. The playground went silent. Not the hushed quiet of tension, but the absolute vacuum of shock. Parents stopped breathing. Children froze mid-motion. Even the wind seemed to pause. Thompson stared at the badge like it was a venomous snake. The Golden Eagle, the Department of Justice seal, the words Federal Bureau of Investigation embossed in bold letters. Next to it lay a leather credential case, official photo and ID card clearly visible through the plastic window. Brad, Martinez whispered, her voice barely audible. Brad, stop, stop! But Thompson couldn't stop. His brain couldn't process what he was seeing. This couldn't be real. Street criminals didn't carry FBI badges. Suspicious individuals in parks weren't federal agents. His entire worldview was crashing down in real time. Walsh saw it first. 23 years on the force had taught him to recognize disaster when it stared him in the face. "Thompson! Step away from her now!" The shout broke the spell. Parents began murmuring. Phones zoomed in. Children asked questions their parents couldn't answer. Thompson's hand was still on Keisha's back, still pressing her against the patrol car, but his grip had gone slack. Torres picked up the badge with shaking hands. Special Agent Keisha Marie Williams, Federal Bureau of Investigation. She read the words aloud like she was announcing a death sentence, because in many ways, she was. Thompson's career died at that moment. His pension, his reputation, his future, all of it evaporated faster than morning dew, but he still couldn't fully comprehend what was happening. That's not possible," he stammered. She doesn't look like... Like what, Officer Thompson?" Keisha's voice cut through his confusion like a blade. She turned slowly, the handcuff on her left wrist catching the light. For the first time in 30 minutes, she looked directly into his eyes, and he saw something there that made his blood freeze. Federal authority. 8 years of it. The kind of power that could end careers, file criminal charges, and turn local police departments upside down with a single phone call. "Ma'am," Walsh said, his voice thick with the weight of impending catastrophe. "I am so sorry. This is..." He couldn't finish the sentence. There weren't words for this level of departmental failure. "Get these handcuffs off me," Keisha said quietly. Not a request. An order. Walsh fumbled for his keys, his hands shaking as he unlocked the restraints. The moment her wrists were free, Keisha rubbed the red marks Thompson's cuffs had left behind. Evidence. Documentation. Federal agents were trained to notice everything. Maya ran to her mother, wrapping her small arms around Keisha's waist.
"Mommy, why did they hurt you?"
Keisha knelt down, gathering her daughter close.
"Sometimes, baby, people make very bad decisions, but it's going to be okay now."
Thompson finally found his voice, though it came out as a croak.
I didn't know. You didn't identify yourself."
"I'm off duty," Keisha replied, standing back up with Maya still clinging to her. "I'm not required to identify myself. But you, Officer Thompson, are required to have reasonable suspicion before detaining anyone. You're required to have probable cause before arresting anyone. You're required to respect the constitutional rights of every citizen, regardless of their race." Each word hit Thompson like a physical blow. The crowd was pressing closer now, sensing the dramatic shift in power. Phones were recording everything, capturing the moment when institutional racism met federal accountability. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," Tom Henderson repeated, his lawyer brain already calculating the lawsuit potential. "Jesus Christ, Thompson, you arrested an FBI agent." Martinez stepped forward, her conscience finally overriding her career concerns. "Ma'am, I want you to know that I objected to his conduct. I tried to redirect him multiple times." Keisha studied Martinez for a long moment. "I heard you, Officer Martinez. Your attempts to de-escalate have been noted." Torres was on her radio, her voice urgent. "Dispatch, we need a supervisor at Riverside Park immediately." And contact the FBI field office. Tell them Agent Williams is... Tell them there's been an incident." "The FBI field office already knows there's an incident," Keisha said, picking up her cracked phone. "I've missed 17 calls in the last hour because I was being illegally detained." Thompson slumped against his patrol car, the full weight of his actions finally crashing down on him. An FBI agent. He'd handcuffed and humiliated a federal law enforcement officer in front of dozens of witnesses while cameras rolled. "This is bad," he whispered to himself. "This is really, really bad." Maya looked up at her mother with confusion still clouding her 8-year-old features. "Mommy, are you really FBI?" Keisha smiled down at her daughter, the first genuine smile she'd managed in the past hour.
Yes, sweetheart. Mommy catches bad guys.
Like him? Maya pointed at Thompson. The question hung in the air like smoke. Because the truth was, Thompson had just become exactly the kind of bad guy that Keisha Williams spent her career putting behind bars.
Sometimes, baby,
Keisha said softly.
sometimes.
The supervisor arrived within 8 minutes, though it felt like hours to Thompson. Sergeant Michael Ramirez had 22 years on the force and the kind of institutional memory that made him valuable during crises. He'd seen officers make career-ending mistakes before, but nothing quite like this. "What the hell happened here?" Ramirez demanded as he stepped out of his patrol car, surveying the scene with experienced eyes. Dozens of parents with phones out, a crying child, his officers standing around looking like they'd witnessed a murder, and a black woman holding what appeared to be federal credentials. Walsh met him in the patrol car. "Sarge, we have a situation." Thompson arrested an FBI agent. Ramirez stopped walking. "Say that again." FBI Special Agent Keisha Williams. She was playing with her daughter at the park. Thompson approached her without cause, escalated the situation, and placed her under arrest for failure to identify and resisting arrest. "And she's actually FBI?" Walsh held up the badge and credentials. 8 years federal service, Civil Rights Division. The color drained from Ramirez's face. Civil Rights Division. The FBI agents who specialized in prosecuting law enforcement officers who violated constitutional rights. Thompson hadn't just arrested any federal agent. He'd arrested the worst possible federal agent. Where's Thompson now? Over there, having what looks like a nervous breakdown. Ramirez approached Keisha, his demeanor respectful but professional. "Agent Williams, I'm Sergeant Ramirez. I supervise this district. First, let me apologize on behalf of the entire department for what you've experienced here today." Keisha studied him carefully. "Sergeant, your officer violated my 4th and 14th Amendment rights, falsely imprisoned me, committed assault and battery, and traumatized my 8-year-old daughter. An apology doesn't begin to address the scope of this incident." "You're absolutely right. I'm placing Officer Thompson on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation. Internal Affairs will be contacted within the hour." "Internal Affairs?" Keisha's eyebrow raised. "Sergeant, this isn't just a policy violation. Your officer committed federal crimes, civil rights violations under Title 18, Section 242, false imprisonment, assault under color of authority." Maya tugged at her mother's hand. "Mommy, I'm scared." Keisha knelt down, her federal authority momentarily giving way to maternal instinct. "It's okay, baby. The bad part is over. These officers are going to make sure nothing like this happens again." Ramirez watched the interaction, recognizing the delicate balance Keisha was maintaining between her roles as victim, mother, and federal law enforcement officer. "Agent Williams, can you tell me exactly what happened from the beginning?" "Officer Thompson approached me without reasonable suspicion, demanded identification without legal justification, escalated the situation through verbal intimidation and physical aggression, ignored my questions about his legal authority, and ultimately arrested me on fabricated charges." Keisha's recitation was precise, clinical. The entire incident was witnessed by approximately 15 civilians and recorded on multiple devices. Torres approached with her notebook out. "Ma'am, would you be willing to provide a formal statement?" "I'll be filing my report directly with the FBI's Civil Rights Division and the Department of Justice Office of Inspector General," Keisha replied. "But yes, I'll cooperate with your internal investigation." By now, a small crowd had gathered around them. Parents who had initially been intimidated by Thompson's aggressive behavior were now openly discussing what they'd witnessed. The transformation was remarkable. Fear had given way to outrage, silence to vocal support for Keisha, and condemnation of Thompson's actions. "I saw the whole thing," declared Mrs. Patterson from the Neighborhood Watch Committee. That officer was completely out of line from the moment he approached her. There was no reason for any of this. "I've got it all on video," added Sarah Lane, holding up her phone. "From the very beginning when he told her she didn't belong here." "Same here," chimed in Tom Henderson. "Clear footage of everything, including the illegal search and the handcuffs." Ramirez realized he wasn't just dealing with an isolated incident anymore. This was a community relations disaster of epic proportions, captured on multiple devices and witnessed by some of the most influential residents in the district. These weren't street criminals or unreliable witnesses. These were lawyers, doctors, business owners, and active community members. Thompson finally found the courage to approach. His earlier bravado completely evaporated. "Agent Williams, I want to apologize. I didn't know." "You didn't know what, Officer Thompson?" Keisha's voice was ice. "You didn't know that citizens have constitutional rights? You didn't know that you need reasonable suspicion to detain someone? You didn't know that making arrests based on someone's race is a federal crime?" "I didn't know you were FBI," Thompson mumbled. "And that's exactly the problem," Keisha shot back. "My badge doesn't give me extra constitutional rights. Every person in this park, black, white, rich, poor, documented, undocumented, has the same rights you violated today. The only difference is that I have the training and authority to hold you accountable." Ramirez's radio crackled. "Sergeant Ramirez, this is Chief Morrison. I need you to call me immediately regarding the incident at Riverside Park." Word was already traveling up the chain of command. In today's social media world, videos of police misconduct could go viral within hours. But this wasn't just any misconduct. This was a federal agent being illegally arrested, and the chief knew the political and legal ramifications would be massive. "Agent Williams," Ramirez said, pulling out his own phone. "I need to brief the chief on this situation. Would you be willing to speak with him directly?" "I'll speak with Chief Morrison," Keisha replied. "But understand that this incident is already being reported to federal authorities. The FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility will be conducting their own investigation parallel to whatever internal process you initiate." Martinez stepped forward, her conscience finally overwhelming her self-preservation instincts. "Sergeant, I need to make a statement. Officer Thompson's actions today were completely unjustified. I attempted to redirect him multiple times, but he ignored my input and proceeded with what I believed to be an unlawful arrest." Thompson spun toward his partner, betrayal evident in his eyes. "Martinez." "No, Brad. What you did was wrong. From the very beginning. This woman was doing nothing but playing with her daughter, and you decided to harass her because—" Martinez paused, struggling with how to say it diplomatically. "Because I'm black," Keisha finished for her. "Officer Martinez, I appreciate your honesty. Your attempts to de-escalate were noted and will be included in my report." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of another patrol car. Detective Lieutenant Carol Stevenson from Internal Affairs had been contacted immediately after Ramirez's initial call to the chief. Stevenson was known throughout the department for her thorough investigations and her unwillingness to cover for problem officers. "Sergeant Ramirez," Stevenson said as she approached, "I understand we have a significant incident involving potential civil rights violations." "Detective Stevenson, this is FBI Special Agent Keisha Williams. She was illegally detained and arrested by Officer Thompson while off duty at this park with her daughter." Stevenson's expression grew grim as she reviewed the scene. The crowd of witnesses, the recording devices, the federal credentials. This was exactly the kind of case that could destroy careers and cost the city millions in litigation. "Agent Williams, I'm Detective Lieutenant Stevenson from Internal Affairs. I want you to know that this investigation will be conducted with complete transparency and accountability." "Detective, I appreciate that, but you should understand that federal oversight will be involved regardless of your internal process. The Department of Justice takes civil rights violations by law enforcement very seriously, especially when the victim is a federal agent." More parents stepped forward, offering their recordings, their witness testimony, their contact information. The community that had initially seemed unwelcoming was now rallying around Keisha and Maya, united in their outrage at what they'd witnessed. "I want to press charges," announced Tom Henderson. "I witnessed assault, false imprisonment, and civil rights violations. As a citizen, I want this officer prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law." "Me too," added Sarah Lane. "What he did was criminal, and we all saw it." A chorus of agreement rose from the gathered parents. They weren't just offering to be witnesses anymore, they were demanding justice. Ramirez was back on his radio, speaking in hushed tones with the chief. The conversation was brief but heated, ending with Ramirez nodding grimly. He approached Thompson with the bearing of a man delivering a death sentence. "Thompson, you're on immediate paid administrative leave. Turn in your weapon, badge, and radio. You're to have no contact with witnesses or other officers regarding this incident. A department vehicle will take you home." Thompson's hands shook as he unholstered his service weapon, removed his badge, and unclipped his radio. 8 years of training, 4 years on the force, a pension he'd been counting on, all of it gone in 30 minutes of breathtaking stupidity. "What about my patrol car?" Thompson asked weakly. "Torres will drive it back to the station. You'll be contacted by Internal Affairs within 24 hours to schedule your interview." Detective Stevenson was already taking notes, documenting the scene and collecting witness information. "Agent Williams, I'll need to schedule a formal interview with you as soon as possible. Given your federal status and expertise in civil rights cases, I want to ensure we handle this properly." "Detective, I'll cooperate fully with your investigation. But I need you to understand that Officer Thompson's personnel file will likely become evidence in federal court. Any history of complaints, training deficiencies, or supervisory failures will be scrutinized." The weight of that statement settled over everyone present. This wasn't just about Thompson anymore. It was about the entire department's hiring, training, and supervision practices. Keisha watched Thompson's world collapse with professional detachment. She'd seen it before. Officers who thought their badge made them untouchable, right up until the moment accountability arrived. But this time felt different. This time, she was the victim instead of the investigator. "Agent Williams," Ramirez said, turning back to her. "Is there anything else the department can do to address this situation?" Keisha looked around the park. At Maya, still clinging to her leg. At the parents who'd witnessed everything. At Martinez, who was clearly struggling with guilt by association. At Thompson, whose career was effectively over. "Sergeant, this isn't about one bad officer. This is about a system that allows officers like Thompson to operate without oversight until they make a mistake so egregious it can't be ignored. Your department needs comprehensive bias training, updated use of force policies, and civilian oversight. Because the next victim might not be an FBI agent with the power to fight back." Maya looked up at her mother with wide eyes. "Mommy, are you going to arrest the mean policeman?" Keisha smiled down at her daughter, the first genuine moment of warmth since this nightmare began.
"No, sweetheart."
"But I'm going to make sure he never hurts anyone else's family." As Thompson was led away to a patrol car for transport home, as Detective Stevenson continued documenting the scene, as the federal investigation machine began to turn, one thing was crystal clear. The consequences were just beginning. 3 weeks later, the conference room at police headquarters felt like a courtroom. The internal affairs investigation had concluded, the federal review was complete, and Chief Morrison sat at the head of a long table with the weight of institutional accountability pressing down on his shoulders. Detective Stevenson opened the thick file in front of her. "The investigation into Officer Bradley Thompson's conduct on September 13th has been completed. The findings are conclusive and damning." Keisha sat across from the panel, Maya beside her drawing quietly in a coloring book. She'd insisted on bringing her daughter to witness this moment, not for revenge, but for closure. Maya needed to see that the system could work, that bad actions had consequences. "Officer Thompson has been terminated from the police department effective immediately," Chief Morrison announced. Additionally, criminal charges have been filed by the District Attorney's Office for civil rights violations, false imprisonment, and assault under color of authority. Thompson's union representative, Robert Klein, shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Chief, my client maintains that this was a case of mistaken judgment, not criminal intent." "Mr. Klein," Keisha interjected, her voice calm but firm, "your client told me I didn't belong in a public park because of my race, physically assaulted me, illegally searched my property, and arrested me without probable cause. That's not a mistaken judgment. That's a pattern of behavior that violates every principle of constitutional policing." Detective Stevenson continued reading from her report. "Our investigation revealed that Officer Thompson had received 7 formal complaints in the past 18 months, all from minority citizens, all alleging racial profiling and excessive force. Previous supervisors either dismissed these complaints or failed to document them properly. The systemic failures were becoming clear. Thompson wasn't just one bad apple. He was the product of a department that had failed to address warning signs for years." "What about Officer Martinez?" Chief Morrison asked. "Officer Martinez has received a formal reprimand and will complete additional training in de-escalation and intervention techniques," Stevenson replied. However, her attempts to redirect Officer Thompson's behavior, while insufficient, demonstrated some awareness that his actions were inappropriate. Martinez, who was present for her own administrative hearing, spoke up. "Chief, I want to formally apologize to Agent Williams and Maya. I should have done more to stop what was happening. I let my fear of confronting a colleague override my duty to protect citizens." Keisha studied Martinez carefully. The younger officer looked genuinely remorseful, and her cooperation during the investigation had been complete and honest. "Officer Martinez, your apology is accepted. But I hope you understand that silence in the face of misconduct makes officers complicit in the harm that follows." "I do understand that now," Martinez replied. "And I've requested an assignment to the department's new community policing initiative. I want to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the communities we serve." Chief Morrison nodded approvingly. This was exactly the kind of response he wanted to see from his officers. Acknowledgement of failure followed by commitment to improvement. "The department is implementing several reforms as a direct result of this incident," the chief continued. "All officers will complete bias recognition training within 90 days. New protocols require supervisory review of any citizen complaint within 24 hours. Body cameras will be mandatory for all patrol officers, with footage automatically uploaded to an independent server." Maya looked up from her coloring book. "Mommy, does this mean the mean policeman can't hurt other kids?" Keisha smoothed her daughter's hair gently. "That's right, sweetheart. He won't be a police officer anymore, and the other officers are learning how to be better." The criminal proceedings moved swiftly. Thompson's attorney attempted to negotiate a plea deal, but the federal prosecutors were uninterested in leniency. The case was too clear-cut, the evidence too overwhelming, and the message too important. The defendant will face federal charges under 18 U.S.C. Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law, announced federal prosecutor David Brooks during Thompson's arraignment. "This statute carries the maximum penalty of 10 years in federal prison." Thompson, dressed in civilian clothes and looking haggard, entered a guilty plea to avoid trial. The judge sentenced him to 18 months in federal prison, 3 years of supervised probation, and permanent prohibition from law enforcement employment. "Mr. Thompson," Judge Patricia Hernandez said during sentencing, "you violated your oath, betrayed the public trust, and traumatized an innocent child. Your actions represent everything that's wrong with policing when officers forget they serve the community, not the other way around." The civil settlement followed quickly. The city, eager to avoid prolonged litigation and further public embarrassment, agreed to a $2.8 million settlement. But Keisha's demands went beyond financial compensation. "The money isn't the point," she explained to reporters on the courthouse steps. "The point is ensuring this never happens to another family." The settlement includes provisions for ongoing federal monitoring of the police department, mandatory bias training for all officers, and civilian oversight of misconduct investigations. Maya, now comfortable with the media attention, added her own perspective. My mommy helps people, and now the police will help people better too. The community impact was immediate and profound. Riverside Park, once a symbol of division, became a gathering place for healing. Parents organized diversity workshops, children played together across racial lines, and the playground equipment Maya had been using when Thompson first approached became an informal memorial to the power of standing up for what's right. Officer Martinez, true to her word, became a leader in the department's reform efforts. She partnered with community organizations, attended neighborhood meetings, and worked to rebuild the trust that officers like Thompson had destroyed. Agent Williams changed my understanding of what it means to serve and protect, Martinez said during a community forum 6 months later. Real service means protecting everyone's rights, especially when it's difficult or uncomfortable. The federal monitoring continued for 2 years, with Department of Justice observers reviewing every use of force incident, every citizen complaint, and every training session. The department's culture slowly but measurably improved. Thompson served his full sentence without incident. Upon release, he moved to another state and found work in construction. He never applied for law enforcement employment again. Sometimes the system works, Keisha reflected during an interview on the first anniversary of the incident. But only when people demand accountability and refuse to accept injustice as normal. Maya, now 9 years old and more confident than ever, had her own wisdom to share. Bad people should have consequences, but good people should get second chances to be better. The playground at Riverside Park installed a small plaque near the swing set where Maya had been playing that Saturday afternoon. It read simply, "In a democracy, no one is above the law, and everyone deserves equal protection under it." The words served as a daily reminder that justice, while sometimes delayed, could still prevail when courage met opportunity and accountability met authority. 1 year later, Keisha and Maya returned to Riverside Community Park on a crisp Saturday afternoon. The playground looked exactly the same, but everything else had changed. Children of all backgrounds played together while their parents chatted easily on the benches. The invisible barriers that had once divided this community had been replaced by genuine connections forged through shared commitment to justice and equality. "Look, Mommy!" Maya pointed excitedly toward the new community police officer walking his beat. Officer James Washington, a soft-spoken veteran with 20 years of experience, had volunteered for the Riverside assignment specifically because he wanted to be part of the solution. "Good afternoon, Agent Williams, Maya," Officer Washington said with a warm smile as he approached. "Beautiful day for the park." "It certainly is, Officer Washington," Keisha replied, noting how different this interaction felt compared to that terrible day 12 months ago. Respectful, professional, human. Maya ran to the swing set, the same one where she'd been playing when Thompson first shattered their peaceful afternoon. But there was no fear in her movements now, no looking over her shoulder for threatening authority figures. She'd learned that while some people made bad choices, the system could hold them accountable when good people demanded justice. The changes throughout the police department had been remarkable. Citizen complaints dropped by 60%. Use of force incidents decreased by 40%. Community trust scores, measured through quarterly surveys, had risen steadily month after month. Most importantly, no officer had been terminated for civil rights violations since Thompson's firing. The key was changing the culture, not just the policies, Chief Morrison had explained during a recent interview. Agent Williams didn't just expose one bad officer, she forced us to confront systemic problems we'd been ignoring for years. The federal monitoring had officially ended 6 months ago, but the reforms remained in place. The Civilian Oversight Board, community policing initiatives, and enhanced training programs had become permanent fixtures of the department's operations. Martinez, now a sergeant and head of community relations, approached with her weekly report. Agent Williams, I wanted to update you on our progress. We've completed bias training for all patrol officers, and the new de-escalation protocols are showing measurable results. That's excellent news, Sergeant Martinez, Keisha replied. Your leadership in these reforms has been remarkable. Martinez smiled, but her expression remained serious. I learned something important that day at this park. Staying silent when you witness injustice makes you complicit in it. I'll never make that mistake again. Maya finished her time on the swings and joined the adults, her natural curiosity about police work evident in her questions. Officer Washington, do you ever arrest people who are innocent? Washington knelt down to Maya's eye level, understanding the weight behind her question. Maya, police officers are human beings, and human beings sometimes make mistakes. But we have rules and training to help us make good decisions, and when we do make mistakes, there have to be consequences. Like what happened to the mean officer? Exactly like that. Officer Thompson broke the rules and hurt people, so he faced consequences. That's how justice works. The conversation was interrupted by Tom Henderson, now chair of the Neighborhood Association's Police Oversight Committee. Agent Williams, I wanted to thank you again for your patience with our community's learning process. The workshops you've led have been transformative. Mr. Henderson, this community's willingness to confront uncomfortable truths and work for real change has been inspiring. Maya and I are proud to call Riverside our home. As the afternoon sun began to set, casting long shadows across the playground where everything had changed, Keisha reflected on the journey from that awful Saturday to this moment of hope and healing. Mommy, Maya said as they walked toward their car, I'm glad you're FBI. You help make things fair. Keisha squeezed her daughter's hand. We all have a responsibility to make things fair, sweetheart. Some people do it with badges, others with cameras, others with their voices. But everyone can do something. The progress wasn't perfect. There were still officers in other departments who abused their authority, still communities where justice remained elusive, still children who feared the people supposed to protect them. But change was possible. Real, measurable, lasting change. Sometimes justice takes time, Keisha said as they drove past the federal building where she worked every day to hold law enforcement accountable. But when communities demand better, when officers like Sergeant Martinez choose courage over comfort, when systems face consequences for their failures, that's when real progress happens. Maya nodded with the wisdom of a child who'd witnessed both injustice and its correction. And when mommies stand up to bullies, even when the bullies have badges. Especially then, baby. Especially then. The story of what happened at Riverside Park had spread far beyond one community, one police department, one family. It had become a symbol of what was possible when accountability met authority, when communities refused to accept injustice as normal, when good people found the courage to demand better. Have you ever witnessed injustice and wondered what you could do about it? Have you seen someone being treated unfairly and wished you had the power to help? The truth is, you do have that power. Document what you see. Speak up when it's safe. Support those who face discrimination. Demand accountability from the institutions that serve you. Real change happens when ordinary people refuse to accept extraordinary injustice. It happens when communities come together across racial lines to demand better from their public servants. It happens when officers like Sergeant Martinez choose to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Share this story if you believe in accountability. Like it if you think all children deserve to feel safe in their neighborhoods. Subscribe for more stories where truth confronts power and justice, however delayed, ultimately prevails. And remember, the badge doesn't make the officer. The character does. Courage does. And communities that demand both can create the change they want to see. What will you do the next time you witness injustice? The answer to that question might just change everything.